Hello and welcome. You're watching Eye on Africa and I'm Clarisse Fortuné. These are the headlines. The world of athletics loses one of its own to domestic violence. Olympic athlete Rebecca Cheptegei died days after being set on fire by a former boyfriend, shocking the world of sport and beyond. The UN strongly condemns her violent murder. The first batch of Mpox vaccines have finally arrived in the DRC. The country has been the epicenter of the outbreak, with other 19,000 cases reported. China pledges to give $50 billion in financing for Africa. For more than 50 African leaders also secured many deals in agriculture, mining, trade and energy. She was 33 years old. She had just returned from Paris for the Olympics. Now, Olympic athlete Rebecca Cheptegei is dead. She died from complications after being set on fire by a former boyfriend. The murder has sparked widespread emotion, particularly in her home country, Uganda. Bastien Renaud reports.
The first reactions to Rebecca Cheptegei's killing came from Uganda. The Minister for Education and Sport sent his condolences to the family and to Ugandans at large. Then the Uganda Athletics Federation said how deeply saddened it is by the death of its athlete and called for justice. And then later in the day, the family spoke to the media in Eldoret, the town where she died. Of course, they shared their pain. They said how painful it is to lose a sister, a daughter. And then they blamed the Kenyan police. They said that she had been threatened by the man who killed her for a while. Listen to her mother.
I have no strength. I just blame the police and her home of Endebess. They were responsible for providing security for my child's home, but failed. I have nothing else to say.
There is now an investigation ongoing. According to the police, 80% of her body was burnt after she was allegedly attacked by a former boyfriend. The police said that neighbors witnessed the attack. They said that they saw the man pouring a liquid on Cheptegei's body before burning her. This man is now in hospital. He was injured as well. 30% of his body was burnt. He will be arrested as soon as he is discharged from hospital, according to the police.
Many reactions from all over the place, from Janet Museveni, Uganda's First Lady, to Kenyan Sports Minister Kishumba Murkomen, who said it was a stark reminder that more must be done to combat gender-based violence. The Paris Olympics organizers also voiced their profound indignation and sadness. Outrage and sorrow as well from fellow athletes.
We are more vulnerable because we are being used. We have these men who come around and just use us as properties. They see a young girl, manipulate them.
And it was the latest horrific act of gender-based violence in the East African country, where activists have warned of a rising femicide epidemic and are calling for long overdue action. Jerry Migwe is the founder of Usikimye, an organization that fights gender-based violence.
This is the fourth murder in a series of murders from 2021 for female athletes. But this is also another, I will not call it murder, I will call it femicide, because femicide is the intentional murdering of women due to their gender, and also intimate femicide, which is what happened in this case. If you look at the intentionality of the murders between all these athletes who have been murdered by their husbands, boyfriends, or partners, if you look at it, there is a thread of finances, the fact that these women have been able to be on the prime of their life, been able to amass wealth, and this wealth, unfortunately, has led to their death. Femicide has been rampant in this country. I remember in the beginning of this year, on 27th of January, as Kenyans and as Kenyan women, and thank God for the Kenyan public as well, we did a femicide march on 27th of January, where we were demanding for the government to speak about and also act upon incidents of femicide. By that time, we had 32 cases of dead women in 1 month. As we're looking at, reported cases are 112 as of this month. That is a lot of women who have died. You see, if we don't act upon something, what are the repercussions when these women are killed? When Agnes Tirop was killed, the case is still in court. When Damaris was killed, the man disappeared. When And all this, I'm looking at athlete cases. I'm also looking at cases that have happened yet, and still we have not seen the pursuance of justice. We have not seen the stance of the nation against femicide. If the head of the nation, the president, does not say anything about femicide, how are we going to treat it?
Now, in other news, the first lot of Mpox vaccines has finally arrived in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The country has been the epicenter of the outbreak. More than 19,000 cases have been registered and nearly 630 deaths reported. Emmett Livingston in Kinshasa has more.
Nearly 100,000 Mpox vaccines arrived by plane in DR Congo's capital, Kinshasa, on Thursday, the first batch to reach the country, which is the epicenter of the global Mpox outbreak. The vaccines produced by Bavarian Nordic were procured and delivered by the European Union. 100,000 more vaccines are expected to arrive in Congo on Saturday. But experts are warning that the rollout could be complicated in Congo, which has dire infrastructure and is plagued by conflict. What's more, the temperature at which the vaccine has to be kept poses a problem.
Now they have to be delivered to difficult areas, such as South Kivu and the Equator region, where the vaccine has to be kept in a cold storage at -20 degrees. These are logistical challenges, and we are in the process of working with our partners, in particular UNICEF, the Ministry of Health, and various NGOs.
European countries and the EU are due to donate a total of 566,000 vaccines to Congo. However, this number is unlikely to end the epidemic. Congo's health ministry says it needs 3.5 million vaccine doses to tackle Mpox. The country has recorded about 18,000 Mpox infections and over 600 deaths. This represents over 90% of the global cases, according to the WHO.
Let's head now to Beijing, where the 9th China-Africa Forum, FOCAC, is underway. Almost every African country has sent a high-level delegation to the event that focuses on trade and development goals across the continent. And this Thursday, Chinese leader Xi Jinping pledged over $50 billion in credit, aid and investment. Covering the summit for us is our Beijing correspondent, Yenali.
The China-Africa relationship is now at its best in history. That's what President Xi Jinping said during his keynote speech at this year's FOCAC. He described China's ties to the continent as mutually beneficial, whilst adding that, I quote, "the Western approach has inflicted immense suffering." The Chinese leader also announced over $50 billion in credit aid and investment, including $1 billion in military assistance. It's interesting to note that FOCAC was first launched in 2000, and this is the 9th edition, compared to the US, for example, that has held just 2 US-Africa leaders summits, once in 2014 and again in 2022. Now, after President Xi's opening address, African leaders representing different parts of the continent also took to the stage. South Africa's Cyril Ramaphosa thanked the hosts at least 5 times, mostly for their approach towards the continent, saluting China's interest and their collaborative approach. President Ramaphosa ended his short speech with a preview of the upcoming final declaration of this year's forum, saying that the signatories support a one China policy and view that the People's Republic of China is the, I quote again, true and only representative of the people of China. Nothing new per se, but certainly a strong message of support to the roomful of high-ranking Chinese officials and, of course, African delegates sitting in Beijing's Great Hall of the People.
And meanwhile, the United States announced this week an additional $40 million to combat food insecurity on the continent at a time when malnutrition and famine are on the rise. Thousands of experts are also looking at solutions to this crisis in Rwanda at the biggest African forum on agriculture. Clément Diroma has more.
African agriculture specialists gathered in Kigali to learn from recent crises and find solutions. Almost 10 years ago, African Union member states signed the Malabo Declaration aimed at reducing poverty and improving access to food by 2025. Around 50 countries committed to various objectives, including dedicating 10% of their budget to agriculture. However, this goal remains far from being achieved. According to the UN, this year at least 55 million people in West and Central Africa struggled to feed themselves.
What we're seeing overall is that malnutrition rates are increasing exponentially. There's been some progress in the area of improving breastfeeding, but all the other nutrition indicators were behind. So we need a seismic shift, some new creativity, some innovation.
The causes of malnutrition and famine include conflicts like in Sudan, as well as climate change and rising food and fertilizer prices. In 2023, the DR Congo and Nigeria, Sudan and Ethiopia were ranked by the UN as among the countries most affected by food crisis. The Kigali Forum is exploring new ideas such as crop diversification, grain processing, better management of agricultural budgets, and improving trade between African states.
And that's the end of our edition. Thank you for watching Eye on Africa.